see all that stuff. But you could do that with white pages. You could do that with like a whole bunch of other things even before that, because people buy information from, where you sign up your car, then they know what your address is. So there's like so many ways that all of our information is already out there. So really, are we giving that much more away by signing a privacy policy that says, yeah, a third party can read it?
Does anybody have a counter to that?
Make it more exposed.
I was going to say, kind of like Owen said. I think
what the heck sweaty out there.
I think a lot of people, undervalue that information and don't necessarily worry about giving it away because they think it doesn't matter and they don't see the harm.
All right, you have to take a stance though. How do you feel about it?
Giving it away for
free count? Yeah, I mean, do you go through and read your Google user agreement or your Apple user agreement? And do you care?
I'm sorry.
It's not too.
Why don't you care?
I guess kind of undervaluing the usefulness of that information.
What's your take?
Yeah, I basically don't care. The only question I have is, and it doesn't matter to me, but there's certain people, and even say when you're in school, whatever, you do something stupid, you get arrested. And so I've seen on these sites, it says, pay us $30 and we'll get the arrest record, we'll get this, and this. I've never done it, but I'm wondering actually if they actually do that. So say, for example, you do something stupid, like my oldest son got open container going to Ohio State game. He got arrested for open container, and he had to go to a lawyer to get it expunged from his record. Mm-hmm. But does that show up? Does it show up when you pay money to find out more information?
As long as it's public knowledge, which is anywhere that hasn't been expunged in any of the courts around the United States. So yeah, if you pay the money, is how a lot of people do background checks. That's how everyone figures out the information. So,
I think a better question is, do you want to be off the grid? Because that's the only way that you're really not going to be found anymore.
And then if you're off the grid, then how do you Google Maps? My parents will not show their location, and then they can't figure out where they're at. I mean, I know maps, but we don't really use those anymore. Mm-hmm. And so what are you losing by not giving your location?
Anybody have anything else to add? Because I think you're all failing to miss one easy criticism of this system, which is that you're not being paid, but you're producing everything. You're not being paid anything, but these advertisers are using all of your information. I mean, Facebook is selling your information. They're making money off of you, and you're making no money.
But you're getting free.
But what?
So,
they created the appetite, though. What were you saying, Sarah? What did you say?
I forgot.
No,
I swear to God, I really did.
Okay. That's the problem, though, right? I mean, Facebook, if we talked about governance, go back to our first conversation about how systems of power are put into place by new and established institutions in order to govern us, to get us to act in certain ways so that way they can take advantage of it, right? Facebook created an appetite and then made the only way to actually meet that appetite Facebook, right? You don't exist. Great example is even LinkedIn. We don't even think about this. LinkedIn has now become so significant in our society that if you're not on LinkedIn when you apply to a job, people will think you're odd. I mean, they've done studies on this. Where is this person? Why are you not on LinkedIn? That came out of that's not some sort of, natural product. That nature created LinkedIn, right? And here, LinkedIn. No, I mean, developers, engineers, designers created this thing, created an appetite, and then made it impossible for us to not help, quench that appetite. Squelch. Quench. Does that make sense? What do you think about it? I mean, what do you think about this? What? You gotta talk, Sarah. You gotta take a stance on data.
Well, my computer just got hacked yesterday.
Oh.
And
wait, a MacBook?
Yeah.
Oh no.
So I just got this, and it was a present. My dad didn't get sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, we're good. How many viewers do we have? We blown it up? One. We have one. All right, get on there. Get on Instagram. Show them.
We just lost him because I said the F word. When I got this, it was because I had probably one of the oldest Macs possible. Yeah. My other computer. My dad got this for me for my birthday, but he didn't get the security on it.
Okay.
And I got a message yesterday, you have viruses, and I'm like, what the hell did I do for this to happen? My grandma just got hacked last weekend, and I had to like pay $295 to get this damn security system on my computer, and I'm very like, I don't share anything, and I don't online bank, I don't do anything because I don't trust it, and
It's interesting.
I don't want to like even use this thing anymore because of what happened yesterday. So I don't know, like people are like, oh, you need to cover up your camera, and like I never did, and now I have a freaking thing on my camera because like I'm paranoid now. So I don't know, like I'm like kind of like reevaluating like what I might have done, like what site did I get on, because I was talking to the guy and I was like, what did I do? And he was like, the main thing that could have happened is I got on a website to get my dad a Father's Day present and it wasn't locked. Who knew friggin' getting my dad a Father's Day present with my dog on it, because he loves my dog. I got him a customized tie and my computer got hacked. So
So it's just ironic because you try so hard to stay outside of that system, but yet
it happened. And I was like, I called like my parents and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, is this a scam? Like, and I don't know if it was. I called Apple. You never know. But I had to pay $295 for this damn thing. But like, I don't even want to use my computer now. And I stay very, very like low key.
I guess to me, the argument you make or the criticism you make isn't wrong. It's just I'm interested in looking at this from 30,000 feet and asking, why do we get so upset with hackers or when the CIA tracks us, but we don't care that Amazon tracks us? Like the mental calculus that goes through our heads to justify giving information to ESPN or the advertisers that they give our data to is just crazy. Because my God, we were up in arms about the Cambridge Analytica situation. Everybody's familiar with that, right? So we're just selling information to sway our votes. I don't know, something like that. But we're 3 months later, nobody cares, by the way. I've kind of forgotten that. We don't think about the fact that Amazon is literally tracing everything we do online in order to make sure that when we buy a book, the other 5 books that they recommend we purchase have a really, really relatively high percentage chance of us buying them, right? I mean, that's the thing about this.
Even Walmart tracks like your credit card and then sends you the coupons for whatever they think that you're going to buy.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's true. It's 100% true. So why? Why don't you care?
Convenience.
Is that it?
I mean, unlike Sarah, I try to stay low profile. I won't
Really?
do online.
But I mean, Metro has all your information, and Metro could get hacked.
Well, you can't control that because you need an education.
But why do they need all your information?
I don't know.
It's like credit. It's like credit scores. Like we never signed up for credit scores as Americans, or West people in civilized societies. Civilized. We didn't sign up for that. But if you don't have credit, if you're not part of that system, you can't get a loan, you can't buy a house. But then you put yourself out there and your information gets hacked even when you don't sign up for it. I mean, to me, it's just like this really complex system.
Yeah, because I was like, what the hell did I do? And then like I was thinking yesterday, I was like, God, I do so much like online shopping. I buy a ton of clothes, I buy makeup, and I'm like, which one like did I not pay attention to? But I think shit just happens.
Well, do you think it was also, you said your grandma got hacked?
Well, yeah.
So, like, last semester, I don't know if you guys, Yeka, she's Met Media, she sent, there was, a message on Facebook. And, we all started getting, all of her friends. And then if you opened it, all of your friends got the same thing. And so it was just going, around. So I feel like also that could have happened.
Totally.
Through that.
The second, I got, it, redirected me to the Apple homepage and was like, you have, something's going on, and I was like, my grandma just got hacked last weekend. So, and when they were on the phone with me, because me and my boyfriend lived together, they were like, do you share the same internet? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, if he doesn't have a system on his computer, he can get hacked too. And luckily he did, but it's just weird how that shit happens. Don't use your computer, bottom line.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so for me, social security number, like, when I was 17, I started, like, giving that out to apply for jobs, to fast fuck everything.
Yeah.
Like, need your social security number. And, like, before that, I'd been told, like, don't give it to anyone.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, this weird, like, I typed it into my computer today to finish my fast fuck form, and I was like, I didn't even think about it. And, like, 2 years ago, it was like, oh, no.
Yeah,
I could be
you
hacked.
just put it out there. Yeah, and also, I mean, some of those, we'll get to sports eventually. So many times when you do an application, they ask for this information that you kind of just go, why? Why do you need my social security number now? Or maybe if we get through an interview and you like me, then I'll, we'll do the background check and all that. But why? On an initial job application, Best Buy, you need my social security number.
I always try to ask for it on anything, if it's like a written application. But then again, like you said, you put it up online. Sometimes with some of these big things, you don't even think about it. But when it comes to in person, I always ask them, like, do you actually need this information?
Yeah.
I said, oh, no, we don't need it yet. I'm like, then why ask for it?
Well, because in restaurants, it's kind of important for
In
back
restaurant?
of house.
In a restaurant for what?
Back of house
What?
to make sure that they have documentation
Oh, for that.
before
okay.
they even do the hiring process
My dentist.
or anything
Why does
like
my
that.
dentist need it?
Well, I don't know about
Yeah.
that. I'm just saying for that's the
You're
only
like,
time that I can think of like an application where that might.
For sure. Okay. All right. Let's do. Any other comments about that we didn't get to at all? I mean, what's the future of sports media? I didn't ask you this on Monday. Anybody, I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts, predictions? I mean, it used to be that you were. I think Larry kind of pointed this out. You could watch maybe 25 games a year from your favorite baseball team, and that was dependent upon the local market showing it, buying the rights to those games, or maybe there was an NBC game of the week, so NBC paid Major League Baseball for those rights. Same thing with football, college football, professional football, basketball. I didn't realize this, but I guess the 1982 NBA Finals were on tape delay. Nobody even thinks about that. Like, you didn't watch it live. Now, like, that's just unfathomable, right? That we have access to everything. I mean, tomorrow the World Cup will start, and you'll be able to watch that first game on 18 different channels. I mean, not that many, but you can watch it in Spanish, you can watch it in Russian, you can watch it in English, all of this. I plan on watching it on Telemundo just because the coverage will be better. But that's crazy. There's so much content out there. There's so much available.
Well, because of that, don't you think? Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good.
Because of that, though, so I took a media industries class last semester, and we were talking about ESPN
Yeah.
and how they're going down, sort of. I mean, I guess you can say, and you can say in like viewings and stuff like that. And so, do you think that that's true? Is it because like everybody else is just kind of like becoming more of a nut over sports?
Well, okay. I think let's walk that back a little bit, Wendy. ESPN's TV viewership is down.
Yeah.
So is everybody's TV viewership. We've now gone from a kind of eyeball economy or a time economy to more of an attention economy. Or what would be a good way to kind of a good term for that? A sedentary economy is just like you're sitting in front of the TV watching football, watching basketball, watching Major League Baseball, and that's how we're going to view whether or not it's a popular sport. But we know that simply we have to change how we're measuring this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
DVRs.
ESPN DVRs, but ESPN, their move towards ESPN Plus, right? This kind of 18-month rollout of their new digital platform. Is it going to work? We don't know, but that's their attempt, right? They're not as concerned with the viewer who's sitting in front of their TV, tuning in to 1 hour of SportsCenter every morning. It's more or less, are you checking ESPN.com? Are you going to watch a half hour of, the Long Beach State Texas Tech baseball game and super regionals? Like, what's going on here, right? Do we have your eyeballs, your attention? Because then you could package that in terms of, user data, usage data, this kind of stuff, and you can sell that to advertisers. And so obviously and you can also very much, if you're ESPN, ESPN has so many tools, they can target that marketing so well, right? So, they can set it up to where they know that they can run an ad for a pizza spot in Milwaukee during the Brewers-Cubs game only in, what's Milwaukee County? Larry, what's it?
It's Milwaukee County.
It's Milwaukee County, right? Just that, right? On your smartphone, I can run that ad. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's way different than running some ad for for the general insurance, right? To everybody across the country when you're getting 0.0001% of interaction. Even if you bump up to 1% interaction for that ad in Milwaukee County, that's extremely more valuable, right? Your risk, think about risk. The risk of spending that dollar goes way down. And so ESPN is not less popular. It's just, I would argue that ESPN's problem, it's so big, it's not agile, right? Facebook is agile. Facebook's huge, but it's a relatively simple idea. You know, they have this tool, they can be agile. They can buy the rights to a sports or to a game and air it.
And ESPN is just trying to cover everything.
Yeah, ESPN's trying to cover everything. You know, they're trying everything and seeing what sticks. And somehow Stephen A. Smith is still sticking. I'm not quite sure why that is.
Oh my God.
Right? Get rid of it. But I mean, think of all the ESPN personalities that are out there that try to pander to one particular type of demographic, right? The college kid, the high school kid, the middle school kid, the African American mother, like all of these different identities. ESPN now has this whole cupboard full of personalities that can tackle that. That's totally new because, again, right, we talked about content before we started streaming. You know, we are agile, right? This is what gives the user more power in this moment. A startup, an entrepreneur, somebody who wants to be a broadcaster. You know, you can now put together a demo reel, put that demo reel on YouTube, put that demo reel, cut it up, put it on Instagram, Facebook, use hashtags, and you can get 1,000 people to see it very, very easily. 20 years ago, you had to go through somebody to do that, right? You literally had to go through a gatekeeper in order to do that. Anymore, there is no gatekeeper, right? You control the means of circulation. And that's, in a lot of ways, that's great. You know, I think that's fantastic. That's probably why we see good talent come up, right? From places where you wouldn't expect. And so there's some good, there's some bad. We give a lot of our data away. It's easier for marketers to target us, but we also, right, the power dynamic has shifted a little bit. And the power dynamic is not so much access as much it is, it's not so much access to distribution as much it is how much data you control, right? It's kind of changed that thing.
There's one down last.
Yeah, for sure.
Not to do necessarily with sports, but going back to the whole of information.
Yeah.
Did you know, random thing, learn this. I don't know, kind of figuring out it's a little bit of a conspiracy theory. But I'm going to put it out there anyway. You know 23andMe? I don't think this part is.
Yeah.
That's actually owned by Google.
Okay. Yeah,
yeah. Like they actually, if you do that, they plan to sell back your information to you. And I don't know if you've heard of it, like 20, 30 years for like $10,000.
That should be like a whole semester that we go through when we read the user agreement at 23.
Yeah,
because you could guarantee like that would be a law class. Because there has to be. I don't think you're crazy.
I was like, are you serious?
Yeah, that can't be crazy, right? I don't think you're crazy.
Because now they're so personalized in your information. Not only do they know what you're looking up on Google, like, hey, we know what kind of health risks you're going to have down the line.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and advertise this to you. So I just wanted to throw that out.
No. I think what is key for all of you here, and just anybody who uses media, social media, is you have to, think about convenience in terms of privacy. How much are you willing to give up in order to have a free email account, right? To advertise on Facebook, all of this stuff. What are you willing to give up? I think that's up to you, right? That's an individual choice. If you don't do anything illegal and you're fine, putting yourself out there, different story. If you're somebody who likes their privacy and all of this, then you're thinking about these things differently. The equation that you're running is a tad bit different.
Or just to kind of counter that, if they're selling back your health risk, wouldn't that be more convenient so that you're actually being targeted for the actual products that
they'll give it to
you
you for $10,000?
Well, I'm just saying, at least you would know what your options are.
Which is great.
Not that I would ever. not that
I was
condoning that.
until I
I'm
heard
just
that.
saying,
It's a good thing.
if you're targeted, even if you're on social media or whatever, they target you with stuff that they think that you like, and a lot of times you like what they want. So instead of seeing a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want, that's just a devil's advocate. I mean, I totally see it from both sides. I'm just saying, okay,
Which
we're
is
gonna.
not a bad thing. Like you said, you get to know your health risk, but
Well,
That's
okay.
a lot to give. It's one hell of a benefit, though. It is.
Yeah.
On the unethical side of things, if they know you're at risk for diabetes, what if they give you ads for things that are diabetic, like that could kill you pretty much, or make your health worse to spend more money to fix it?
Or they're going to run an ad like for, that's the thing, right? There's so many different medications out there for diabetes related diseases that now the company willing to spend the most money to access that data is going to be the company whose information you get and you buy their thing. Right? This is one of the arguments about why small agile businesses need to be using Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising now, is because eventually the massive companies are going to figure it out. It's going to be extremely expensive to buy an ad on Facebook. Right now, clicks per dollar is relatively low. I mean, it is. It's still like relatively low. You can reach a pretty good audience. We'll advertise our podcast, or I'll advertise my own business on there, and you get some pretty good, return on investment for the most part. You get to collect some data, you get to learn about your users. But I mean, let's imagine that I spend $10 a week to reach 10,000 people in Denver. That could realistically go up to $100 a week to reach the same amount of people if, I don't know, Deloitte Consulting gets in on the game. Or, PepsiCo gets in on the game and now changes how much a brewery has to spend, right? A local brewery has to spend in order to target. Like, that could legitimately happen. Like, Molson Coors could put Tivoli Brewing out of business or it could force their hand in how they advertise digitally, because they're willing to pump as much money as possible to make sure that, okay, if there's 10 of you here, I'm willing to, pay I will pay $20 to reach all 10 of you. And, maybe Tivoli only has $9 each, right, to spend all of you. That means you're not going to reach their content. They're not going to be able to hit you. That's crazy. But I mean, that's the argument that's eventually going to happen. These monolithic organizations are going to have to figure it out, because nobody watches TV anymore. Nobody sits there and consumes ads passively. They don't. I mean, do we even pay attention to Super Bowl ads anymore?
I do.
You do.
I'm not gonna lie, I do.
Do you remember them? Like, do we remember the Budweiser frog ads, right? And the Clydesdale ads?
I remember the Puppy Monkey Baby from last Super Bowl. That one was really trippy, though. You gotta make one hell of an impression to make something like that stick.
Yeah. This stuff is just happening so fast.
I remember Hockey Falls from Bud Light. The
Hockey Falls. I vaguely remember that.
Those ones.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, like the Budweiser frogs. It was like staples. That's about it.
The little boy, the Star
Doritos.
Wars one, that one's good.
Doritos.
What is it?
The little boy that dresses Darth Vader. Turned on the car.
So then they spend like
Volkswagen,
millions of dollars, and some of them don't stick for nothing.
Yeah. Oh man, I would not want to be in that game right now. Coming up with ads. Like, and how do you measure that? Like, companies just throw so much money away at this. If you think about it. Again, to reach 0.0001% of your audience,
$5 billion for 30 seconds.
The return on investment is really, really low.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about sports fans. Okay, since we are going to write a paper on this, does anybody have questions about the questions that we came up with?
What do you think is going to eventually take the naming rights for the Broncos Stadium? Any suggestions?
Us, let's do it.
Let's do it.
I wish it would be some cannabis company, right? Like, that would be awesome.
Be really cool.
I was talking to one professor. He said he cannot be the cannabis company, but he said that they're asking $11 million for 15 to 30 years.
That's it?
Per year. $11 million per year. He said they've only gotten one offer for $8 million, and the Broncos rejected it. So they're starting to think that was one hell of a regret.
Huh. Oh, do you know how much Sports Authority paid when they were paying?
I don't know. But I know that's the reason why they went bankrupt.
So he has see, now we're like basically running a TV show, radio show, right? We got a producer here, look up the data. I want to know what that is. And even what, do people care about that?
I don't know. See, that's
the name.
I know.
The ad, I guess, does the name of a stadium, where is the use value of that name? Is it driving by? Or is it watching on TV? I wonder.
It's you're going to the Sports Authority arena. You're going to the Sports Authority. Broncos at the Sports Authority.
But that's a local thing then, right?
Well, no, but that's whenever any teams play in here, it's the Seahawks and the Broncos playing at the Sports Authority. The Sports Authority, it's their names getting named out
I'm not
a
a
million
fan,
times.
but I still call it Mile High.
Yeah, same here. Hi.
For sure.
Okay, it says on August 16th, 2011, Invesco would immediately transfer the naming rights to Colorado-based Sports Authority in a 25-year agreement worth $6 million per year.
So $6 million. So they're doubling it basically.
Yeah.
What they want.
I hear that they want to take down the stadium and make a new one too.
Well, it's old. Why would you put your name on an old house?
Yeah. That's why they need someone to take the naming rights. They want someone to take the naming rights to completely build a new stadium.
How much of that matters to you as fans?
The new
I don't know
stadium.
that.
Just the name of a stadium? Do you care?
I still call it
If I was
Mile
a
High,
White
like
Sox
you said.
fan, I'd be very upset because that stadium's new name is Guaranteed Rate Stadium.
Yeah.
Okay. It's changed. It's not the same U.S. Cellular Field, right? It
No.
used to be U.S. Cellular?
So the original was Comiskey,
Yeah.
and then the new one became U.S. Cellular,
I know.
and Guaranteed Rate just took over last year.
Guaranteed. See, I mean,
Guaranteed
these
rate.
tech companies that just have,
Right.
or banking companies that have buku bucks that you just throw at it. That's what's going to happen. At least with marijuana, we would have a cultural phenomenon, right? Like we have something
What's
that
the big
matters
one?
to our
It's
town.
Flora.
But they would never
Yeah,
accept. Like the Broncos would never be like,
Native roots.
Yeah.
native roots. Exactly.
It actually wouldn't be a bad
That is
thing.
actually a very good name. They can't even get a bank loan. Oh.
Aw.
Well, what's your opinion on the changing the arena, like getting a new arena as opposed to keeping the old ones, like Wrigley Field or not Wrigley Field? Is it Wrigley Field that they got a new stadium and everyone was like,
Oh no,
No.
no, no.
oh no. Here's the one that got
Wrigley's
the new stadium and everyone was really upset about it, but the name is torn down. And
Yankee stadiums.
Yankees.
Yeah.
Do you think fans appreciate that, or do you think they don't appreciate that?
I think that a lot of teams take advantage of their fan base in order to build new stadiums. There was actually a really good episode of Last Week Tonight, or I think last year, in which John Oliver talked about this. You milk the emotional connection to a team within a city, a municipality, in order to build a stadium, because if we don't build it, then we leave, right? I mean, that's what happened. That's
But
what
then
happens.
it goes back to look at all those old stadiums at Wrigley, Boston and LA.
Yeah,
And it's just
yeah.
people don't want it to move. People don't want it for you to tear it down,
Yeah.
and you make fans angry, I
Uh-huh.
guess.
That's nostalgia too, right? We talked. I think somebody was asking about nostalgia last week or on Monday. That's the persuasiveness of nostalgia, and sometimes the issue with it, because I know the Cubs had
Wrigley.
issues getting players
It's
in
disgusting.
because nobody wanted to
It's
come
so
to Wrigley and play. The locker room's disgusting. You don't want to hang out there. It's not updated. None of this and that. I mean, that matters if you're spending 81 days there at least a year, for hours and hours and hours. That's your workspace. And so if it looks really shitty, it's hard to get players in. So what do the Cubs do, right? They somehow dig a big hole underneath Wrigley and, put stuff in there, right, and rebuilt it. So I understand what you're saying. And that was funded, I would suppose, probably mostly by the Wrigley family and whoever else owns the Cubs now. But the Ricketts, there we go. But I don't know.
I mean, same thing happened with Dodger Stadium. It was
Yeah.
super old, and they were wanting to build them a new one, and people just didn't want it to go
Yeah.
from where it is, and so they just refurbished.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny. Somebody just said, "Do I get college credit for watching this?" Well, okay. Let's walk this back, and we can maybe return to this conversation about what fans enable. But I think, to me, right, I want to think about fans. I guess in this kind of equation. Let me write up one more thing here. So fandom as a technology of governance, right? And by that I mean, think about all of the ways that are not biological or natural, evolutionary, in which fandom influences the decisions that we make or don't make. And you don't have to be a fan, but think about how not being a fan does the same thing. In order to even begin having that conversation, I think it is important to realize that what is acceptable and what is unacceptable in terms of fandom is dependent upon the situation, the cultural moment, the context that is going on. Okay? So, in power, right? Obviously in power. So, for example, I always think of fantasy football, right? Or fantasy sports. Now it's become the norm. Right? So many people are involved in it. But for 10 years ago, 15 years ago, spending hours in preparation to go to a draft in person with 10 people you knew really well, and then spending 7 hours doing that, drinking beer, that was culturally acceptable. Yeah, sure, right? I totally get it. If I were to say I'm doing that playing Dungeons and Dragons, how many of you would go, nerd, right? That's the thing. Cultural understanding, the cultural moment, the cultural context depends upon, will influence what we understand as acceptable fan culture or fan being. And so, that comes to define identity, right? Am I an in-grouper or am I out-grouper, right? Am I a member of that fan base? Or what happens when you're a member of the fan base? Do you know every player on your team? And is that considered cool? Or are you weird? Okay? All of these things, right? It's a continuum, it's a spectrum of fandom that depends upon the culture that you're a part of. And that culture can be us in this classroom. It can be your family. It can be, the city that you're in, all of this. It can be the bar that you go to. That has a cultural component, right? There's a shared identity, a shared system of beliefs that people have that will define, right, that group. But here in America, our understanding of fan is very different from other parts of the world, right? I think we talked about this on day one. We don't have different levels of fandom. We do because our book provides it. But in terms of like the popular conversation, we don't have the fan, the supporter, the hooligan, right? We just have, you're a rabid fan, you're a fan, all of this. Like, there's no disparity. We lack the vocabulary in order to split that kind of stuff up. But if you go to somewhere like England, right, being a hooligan is not something that is celebrated. Although, cultural context, being a hooligan was accepted, let's say 25 years ago, right? When you would go to Premier League games or, professional soccer games, football games, in England, and just, there would be massive riots, death, oftentimes, right, for hooliganism. That was understood to be part of the culture, right? It's acceptable. And then how many 60 people died when the stadium collapsed? Or there was a massive riot or something like this in the late 1980s. And that now changes how we view fandom, in particular, how we understand hooliganism. And so therefore, right, the hooligan who was in your town, your neighbor, right, the person who would go to the pitch and watch every game from your favorite football club, who probably lives in their mom's basement. That person had a cute quality to them in, let's say, prior to the downfall of hooliganism. Right? Oh, that's cute, right? That's cute. Then afterward, right, because of cultural shifts, after all these people die at that one soccer match, and I can't remember what it was, I'm sorry, I should remember, that hooliganism changes, right? That's no longer an acceptable way to be. It's no longer cute, right? You're an animal, you're a disaster, all of these things. Does the same thing happen? I mean, can we think about examples here in the States where that kind of stuff happens?
Are they saying Pittsburgh or somewhere has to have a court at the actual stadium to take care of all the fans?
Oh, they have a court now?
Yeah, I think, was it Pittsburgh or was it either Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh? I think it's Pittsburgh. But yeah, they have a court in the actual, right by the stadium to just take everyone that causes ruckus because there's so many people and just throws them in jail while the game's going. Yeah. And charges them with stuff.
But think about how that's acceptable in sports. With sports in this country. Again, if I were going to go to jail for a big Dungeons and Dragons conference, I don't know, what do you call it? What do you do with Dungeons and Dragons?
I think it's just a meetup.
A tournament, right? A meetup, you would be like, nerd, right? Nerd. There was a movie that came out in the 90s called Trekkies. It's a documentary. There have been a couple since that talks about Star Trek culture and all of this. And even I think about that, like Star Trek culture compared to Star Wars culture, and how somehow being a Star Wars fan is acceptable now. Like everybody's got their Star Wars gear on. It's really cool. But man, if you watched Star Trek and you watched it on TV and you watched the movies and all that BS, you were a nerd or you were a total nerd. It's all fluid. It all totally changes. But think about like how that then influences the person who is a fan of a team or a fan of a thing. Right? Like think about how you view yourself if you are a player of Dungeons & Dragons and you don't know anything about sports and you go to a family gathering and everybody's talking about the Broncos and you know nothing. Like think about what that does to you individually and what it does to your body and how you act and all of this. Right? It works to govern you in a lot of ways. Or think about, this is guys playing fantasy football, getting last in your league, right? If you guys ever watch the league, right? Think about what that says about your masculinity, okay? Or even, no matter what your gender, if you play fantasy sports and you get last, there is still an element of masculinity that you are trying to gather and bind. What happens when you get lost or when you lose, right? When you're last, right? You don't know anything about the sport. You're a loser, right? You couldn't, I'm the man. I know I win. All this BS, okay? In fantasy baseball this year, I just realized that I lose to guys who either work night shifts, so they're up at midnight getting people off the waiver wire, or they live like in Hawaii or on the West Coast, automatically kind of beating me. Does this make sense to you? I want to hear from you. I want to hear from folks. Then there's the fan, right? There's not a lot of order to this. We'll apply some theory here in a second. But like as a Cubs fan, I got really pissed off as the Cubs started to win. When I was in college, they got better, and you had all these people coming out of the woodwork with Cubs gear. I was like, okay, no, right? You don't know what it was like. You don't know even when they won in 2016. You don't know what it's like to go through a lifetime of that, and I don't know what it's like to go through 80, 100 years of that. I have no idea. I don't know what that felt like. But think about how that then changes one's idea of themselves, how it governs one relationship with other people within that fan base. All of this, it plays a realistic part in how we interact with each other. Zach isn't here because he's in Katia's class today. We talked about going to the airport and seeing somebody with a Dodgers hat on and refusing to talk to that person. Like, you don't know anything about that person. That person could have offered you $1 million, but your fandom got in the way. Yes, right, exactly. It's completely arbitrary, right? It's completely constructed. But it governs, especially those of us who watch sports or those of us who are around people who know sports. It governs our interactions with other people as a technology of governance, right? It has an effect. It 100% has an effect. And we take for granted the role that sports play in this culture because, obviously there are pockets, massive pockets of America where knowing anything about sports is totally fine. But in the mainstream, I would argue that sports are very, very much central to what's going on. They're the Cubs, you needed to know that the Cubs won the 2016 World Series, right? Or watched the Super Bowl. Right? These kinds of things are moments, annual moments that define our society, even if you don't like sports. That's fucking crazy.
Isn't the Super Bowl considered an American holiday?
Yeah.
Yeah, the same thing when we went to California a couple of years ago. I wore my Broncos jersey. Of course, you're in California. I know not that many people were Broncos fans. I saw like 2 or 3. They're like, hey, go Broncos! Like you said, it just governs.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of people with Raiders jerseys that hated us, but hey, that was fun.
Uh-huh. Well, think about the Raiders are a fantastic example too, and Raiders fandom, because in the 90s, right, that stood for something else. And it still kind of does, right? That was black culture. That was South Central LA culture. That gets taken up as a symbol of NWA, right? Fuck the police and all of this. That stands in then. That team comes to stand in for this identity that even now I think still resonates with sports fans, right? So you don't want to go to Oakland because who knows if you're going to get out. But seriously, it may not be true, but that still is the case.
So how do you think that's going to affect all of the fans of the Raiders right now, since they are going to be heading over to Nevada, since they do have such a big impact in Oakland as is?
Yeah. I don't know. It's a good question. To me, there's probably not a better team to move to Vegas, quite honestly. Right? They're already kind of stepchild of the NFL, and they have been for 30 years. I would assume that went into choosing the Raiders or the Raiders choosing to go, that kind of
I'm
conversation.
surprised Vegas would even take them because they're already having enough like crime problems and all that kind of stuff to like bring in that kind of fan base is kind of
It probably will
interesting
bring in a
choice.
lot of. Well, it's gonna be
it's
interesting to
so
see what happens.
close to like California. You know, it's like what I guess
4 hours.
it's 4 hours from San
From
Diego, so I don't know where it's from.
It'd be a lot longer from San Francisco.
Yeah,
or from the
probably,
Bay Area.
But do you think that they needed all that extra, bringing the team, getting like extra money to the city since now, legal sports betting around the country? So they're going to lose a lot of money in that
Yeah.
aspect.
Legal?
Legal.
Oh, legal.
Legal sports betting.
Well, I think what we're going to see with the Raiders is can an NFL team or the hockey team did it, right? But hockey's at a lower kind
Golden
of
Knights.
the Golden Knights, right? To fill an arena takes less people than to fill a football stadium. Can a team survive on tourism? Right? Which is what's going to happen.
Right.
There are not a lot of locals in Las Vegas. I mean, there are, don't get me wrong, but do they care? Do they want to be there at the game? I don't know. You would assume it'll be a lot of tourists going to games, people traveling from LA or from Oakland or in whatever team they're playing, right, to go to the game. Can this sustain a team? Right? Will you have tailgating? Will you have that kind of
There's
atmosphere?
the space for it in
Yeah.
the
I
hot
think an
temperature
example
too.
is
Yeah.
Miami Marlins.
Mhm.
You know, there's a tourist area, and they've never drawn well. Tampa draws terrible.
Yeah,
And those are,
that's
tourist
true.
places.
That's true. Well, look at the Rams games this year, right? Or the last 2 years. People said it was a bad idea to bring the Rams there. Nobody goes to the games. It's because it's LA. Like, there's plenty of other shit to do in LA than go to a football game. To pay $100 to go to a football game. You know what I mean? Like, that's expensive. That's really expensive. At least at Coors, you can get a $15 ticket, you get a $5 ticket, and take your family and enjoy yourself. It's not that expensive. But
Football's
LA's
expensive
already
though.
expensive to begin
Yeah.
with, so like getting a hotel room,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff is you're looking at like a lot more than $75 hotel room here.
Guy, were you saying? Just going back to the family's governance at work, the supervisors and managers really got into DraftKings and we started to do
man.
basketball. And for like
Yeah.
6 weeks in a row, we would do four games a week, and then we'd be talking about it all the time.
Yeah.
And eventually, and we never really thought about it, but eventually people started saying, like, what the fuck, why are these people talking? Like, that's all they're talking about
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And we had to stop, dude. Like, they put it in order, like, you can't do DraftKings at work anymore.
wow.
As a group, right?
Okay.
So,
Interesting. Can you still do a March Madness pool?
yeah, I actually was in charge of
Okay,
the
you were.
pool this year.
Yeah.
So it was like,
That's-
I was pretty frustrated with that because then, we're pulling money for that and
Uh-huh.
everything, and that's what everybody was talking about for a month.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was just really, it was really interesting to see how that actually affected people,
Mhm.
especially the guy who plays chess on the computer all day.
To see, he was the one that tried to win. He was very upset.
Yeah,
So you guys should start a chess club, and then everybody would be totally fine. Yeah, I know. Fandom. I should go get my football helmet. You guys have never seen my football.
Yeah, we have 3 viewers, guys. And I was one of them, so we have 2.
I wonder who the
What is-
one
what is
viewer
that
is that
on?
tuned in.
It's on Instagram.
What's what's his?
Sports Nerds.
Oh, it's Sports Discourse.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he have it on YouTube?
Yeah, there's 2 people watching. I just joined, so that makes us 3. You have 2 viewers.
Hey, we're famous. Okay, so that is a signed Iowa football helmet. Iowa football helmet signed by the great Hayden Fry, who was a football coach at Iowa for, I don't know, many, many years. He's tied now with Kirk Ferentz as the winningest football coach in Iowa history.
My brother is watching.
Hey! Over there on
Danny.
Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay, what's his name?
Daniel.
Hey, Daniel. Peace. Okay, so let's put this on the video. There we go. There we go. Okay.
Vegas stuff. Remember LA singing Exodus, the people from SoCal to Vegas.
This thing, right? Iowa football fandom probably defines my life more than I would care to even acknowledge. But the irrationality that goes into my body every fall is immeasurable. It's insane. Like, I will fight with my family, right? I will not talk to my kids, right? To watch a football game. I know that's wrong, right? It's totally wrong. And if somebody did that with the Broncos, I'd be like, you're stupid. Why did you do that? They're dumb. They're awful. But this, for some reason, what this stands for, it clouds all of that judgment. And I think I mentioned this last week. I will try not to watch any NFL games this year. because I don't. It's not the politics. It's the CTE. It's the organization. I hate it, but I can know that college football is extremely dangerous, and I'll still watch it. That's
But
all
only.
fan, right? That's the
Only
fanaticism.
Iowa.
Yeah, bro. Well, I mean, I'll watch. No, I'll watch. For some reason, right? The fanaticism, the irrationality, the lack of logical thought processing that happens with fandoms, with fans, is freaking crazy. It is. And I think that's why, if we go to open our textbook and we look at the spectrum of the continuum of fans, right? I think that's oftentimes why the vested sports fan looks down upon the social sports fan. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I would imagine as a Dodger fan, these brands, which is what they are, they're brands. It probably happens significantly. What's your team? What's your you?
Football?
Yeah, well, anything. Like,
Wisconsin, Ohio
Wisconsin.
State, Packers.
Okay. Wisconsin people are so nice. You're not sure.
Not so
Are you
nice.
Ohio State or are you-
Yeah, that's true. It gets a
That's
little
all you
complicated.
talk about is Ohio.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I'm so excited
I-
to
So
go
question,
this
did you
summer.
buy
I
this
used
or
to
did
date
you?
It was a graduation present from my aunt and uncle. Yeah.
Just
They love you.
Yeah, like, that's some love.
Well, my uncle is an Iowa grad and a successful oncologist, so I think he gives a lot of money to the football program or to the school. So it probably wasn't that hard to get Hayden Fry to sign it. He should just give me the money.
I want to know the reaction to when you received this.
I think my dad was more excited than me. I was. It was my graduation party, so I was probably intoxicated. But no, I was super pumped. There were moments where, like when Iowa won the Big Ten title or won the Big Ten West 3 years ago. That was it was like the happiest fall of my life. I hope my wife never watches this video because we got married. We got married in the fall, but every Saturday was just like the best 3 hours ever. Like it was just a party. The more Iowa won, with the crazier guy, and I lived here. It was not like I was in Iowa City or anything. And then that was the year the Cubs made the NLCS for the first time in forever, and so it was just a good fall.
Focused or bestest?
Wait,
Me?
2008?
Vested, I would say vested. 2015 is when Iowa won the Big Ten West, and then got beat by Michigan State by 3 inches in the Big Ten title game.
Is that your guys' rival then too, or is it just Ohio's rival?
Nobody really hates Iowa. We don't really have a rival.
Okay.
Wouldn't Minnesota be?
Kind of, yeah. We hate Michigan, but everybody hates Michigan.
Right. But Ohio
Yeah.
really hates
Ohio
Michigan.
State
That's
really
like a
hates
whole
Michigan.
different.
Yeah. But if you go to an Iowa-Wisconsin game, there's not a lot of fighting. It's like everybody's drinking together, throwing, hey, get over here, have a beer, And even with Minnesota, it's the same kind of thing. Nebraska, the Iowa-Nebraska, they're starting to hate each other. Which is, I guess, the battle of corn.
Yeah.
I hate Nebraska fans. Hate Nebraska. They're awful. They win 2 national titles 20 years ago, and it's like, we're the greatest thing ever. They've been insignificant for 20 years. Like, nobody cares. So, alas, Nebraska fans are not my favorite. Okay, I like this, right? I like the sports fan continuum. I want to make sure that we understand this because I think with that number one question on your survey, you're going to want to be able to explain these different types of fans to the people who you're talking to. Okay. All right. So let's kind of break it down. Who came up with this, by the way?
Yeah, it seems like the writer was like from Colorado because all he talks about is like
Colorado stuff.
Yeah, Colorado teams.
Wait to the next chapter with the hockey.
Is
Is it all Colorado again?
It emphasized when the guy from Colorado got punched.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Wait, what's
It's
that?
the same chapter. It's page.
Chapter 4.
It's page 83.
And that's the.
That's when the slap.
Bertuzzi.
Yeah.
Oh, Tom Bertuzzi. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my God, they mentioned Slapshot in here.
yeah.
I forgot. This is a new version, I guess. They didn't have all the little side examples. That's one of my favorite movies, by the way. Slapshot. Okay, so this is Sutton, McDonald, Milline, and Kemperman, which I think, good or bad, there's probably, again, this is a continuum, it's a spectrum. People probably fall in and out of these different categories depending upon what sport, what moment, all of this stuff. I mean, that's the thing about, again, to go back to the Cubs winning. And I bring that back because we haven't had a moment like that in terms of sports culture, I don't think, in a long time in which a team, I don't know, it was like it took over the, I don't know.
Like when the Red Sox won.
It becomes a national narrative, right? It's a story. The U.S. soccer team did that 4 years ago when they made it to the knockout round. I mean, people were super excited about that. But I can't think of – the U.S. women's soccer team has done that before, for sure.
I feel like most of the fans are like, for soccer, though, is like kind of more of a social – like they're not really invested until we're like actually making news.
Why do you think –
hockey team.
Okay, so why do we – now we're going to have to pivot back towards sports narrative. What is it about these stories that become so powerful, so popular at the national level? Why do the Cubs do that? Why does U.S. men's soccer team do that? Why do the Red Sox do that? Why do even
U.S. hockey.
Even when the Cavs beat the Warriors that one year where the Warriors would have had the best record ever, right? And I think everybody was rooting for the Cavs. They were. They wanted that. They wanted LeBron to win. Now, 3 years later, we hate it. So fickle, right?
I think it was bigger with like the Cubs than it was with the Red Sox,
Okay.
just because the Red Sox were always like the bad guy,
Yeah,
and the Cubs were like obviously a longer stretch, and everybody was rooting for the Cubs.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
really
Isn't it
annoying.
because everybody loves the underdog story?
I think so, right?
Everyone can relate to the underdog story, the trials and tribulations and overcoming the hearts and, the hard times and like just getting to the victory and being the one who won, and a lot of kids that are in impoverished areas, they live up to watching sports as like the only way to get through hard times.
Yes, exactly.
Because
I think another example is when the United States in the Olympics beat Russia.
Yes. TJ
That-
Sochi.
Yeah, that was a moment the whole country just because keep in mind Russia had all these professionals, and the hockey team at that time was still all amateurs.
Yeah.
So that was a huge thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like those real stories have been told in film, right? Like Rocky IV. Yeah. But it's real, right? It's real. Like it's actually it's real. Sorry, it's reality. It's not. It's still constructed in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of takes over. The Yankees winning the World Series in 2001.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, did they win it in 2001?
Or
No, they beat the Diamondbacks, right? Is that a one?
that was Diamondbacks. That was they got shattered by Alex
Randy
Rodriguez
Johnson.
or not Andy Rod. What's the
Luis
guy?
Gonzalez.
Luis Gonzalez.
Gonzo.
That whole fall was all Yankees.
Being a
All
Cardinals fan
Yankees.
and watching the Cubs win last year was interesting because I've been taught to hate the Cubs.
Mhm.
But I thought it was such a cool sports moment that's where the fandom of just baseball in 108 years and all of a sudden it culminates to that moment.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, good for you guys. And then the next day it's like,
I hate
back to
you.
hating you.
Yeah.
That moment
Not
didn't happen
huge.
for me though.
No, you're right. You're right. Think about the mental calculus that sports fans have to do. I know we're just talking about fans, we're jumping all over the place, but I mean, I guess that's what. Are we okay with that? Are we good? We're just having these conversations. Think about when your team gets somebody you hate, and not because they were on another team, or just they're bad people, right? Like the Cubs get Aroldis Chapman, who just got in trouble for beating his wife,
And now the Yankees got him.
and now the Yankees got him, right?
Because
Like,
everybody pardoned him.
yeah, like you're willing to look past that, even though at the micro level it's not good, right? It's awful. But again, emotion, feeling, affect, they trump, no pun intended, because Trump has figured out Trump, right?
But like, so my brother is not a sports fan.
Okay.
And so he argues with me constantly.
Okay.
And he's like, are you a fan of these people that are on the team?
Yeah.
Or are you a fan of the organization, like the team itself? And I was like, I'm a Dodger fan, but if the Dodgers lose a player that I really like, I'm not going to, like, I'll still kind of follow. Like, Adrian Gonzalez just got released by the Mets, and that makes me really sad.
Yeah.
Because I loved Adrian Gonzalez.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just kind of like, he's like, so what? He's like, that's why I can't back you in your sports fandom because of he's like, it's more of like an emotion. I'm just like, you know what? Just let me be.
Yeah.
Just let me follow what I want to follow and believe what I want to believe. And yes, I'm a Dodger fan, but like I said, there are certain things like the Lakers. I'm a Laker fan. Sorry, guys. The Lakers had people on their team that I hated. I hated Ron Artest. I hated so many certain players.
Yeah.
But it's like, thank you, Ron Artest, for that buzzer-beating score, like basket that you made. But I still hate you.
Yeah.
But I'm a Laker fan.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of, it's really, I understand what he says and what he tells me, and
Yeah.
it's really contradicting, I should say, but.
So this is the reason why this is the reason why scholars,
Where do the
critics-
loyalties lie? They just text me.
That's what it said.
He's watching.
The problem is when this kind of conversation or this kind of emotional connection to brands or entities bleeds into politics. Then it becomes populism, right? I mean, I didn't want to go down that route, but that's why politics is supposed to work against this, right? You're not supposed to be a fan of a person. You're not supposed to be a fan of an ideology. You're supposed to be an open-minded, kind of rational, logical, democratic actor. But it's almost like sports culture have taken over politics now.
Well,
And I'm not talking with Trump, even before that, right? I mean, you could say the same thing happened with Obama. For sure, 100%, right? 100% with Obama. I mean, a brand, a superstar,
he's a Sox fan.
right? Reagan, right? I think you could throw somebody out there, Kennedy, right? I mean, this kind of stuff, that brand management, that brands and the success of brands depend so much on taking advantage of the emotional disposition of fans. And so when that bleeds into politics, that becomes a problem because no longer are you a voter, you're a fan. And that's not what democratic policy is supposed to further, right? This is why you want lawyers, right? This is why somebody who's in favor of the law, right? Or legal practice or the Supreme Court would step in and say, this is why, right? Ultimate rationality. I may not agree with you with what you come to as a conclusion, but I understand that the process you use in order to come to that conclusion, the deliberation that happens in order to come to that conclusion is going to be uber rational and logical. And that is, that should be expected of us at a certain level as citizens in a free society. But populism's taken over. It's just crazy, right? It's wild. I know we're not talking about sports at the moment, but anyhow, okay. So, social fan. Those individuals whose interest in a sport is driven more by the ability to connect with others. The sport itself is peripheral or secondary to the pleasure obtained from sharing the experience with other fans. So the example from the book is the coworker who takes part in an office pool for the NCAA basketball tournament, despite not having followed college basketball the entire regular season. I would push back and say that's basically everybody now because college basketball is unwatchable, right?
Yeah.
Until you get to March, unless you have a team in it, I suppose. Okay. The social fan. How many of you are social fans? Or does it depend? So you are a
It
social fan.
depends.
Depends on the sport and the team.
When are you social? Like when do you feel the need to go out and let sports be that kind of defining characteristic or thing that you revolve around?
Super Bowl
Super
or
Bowl.
like I did marching band and
Okay.
we followed the whole
Okay.
like we followed the football team the whole season.
Okay.
I
So that
lie
would be
with all of
perfect
these
then.
fans.
Social. All right. Are there other moments like social fan?
World Cup.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of probably
that.
social fans this week. Right?
That's
out
big
in,
stuff.
like going to Coors Field or something like that. There's so many people from everywhere else. You'll see 30 Cubs hats, a bunch of Los Angeles hats, and
Yeah.
those teams aren't even playing that day.
Yeah.
So I think that's more of a social aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They like the stadium. That's what I've got. They're just like most people are like, I have to get to that stadium because I don't care how
It's
awesome
beautiful.
it is.
Yeah.
It is really beautiful.
What else? Social fans. World Cup's a good example. Super Bowl.
Like you said, March
is a good
Madness.
example. March Madness is a good
Madness.
example.
The World Series.
The
World Series.
NBA final.
All finals and all. I
Yeah.
think
all the
Yeah.
Punch Bowl,
Championship
all
or-
the like.
Who is like? What does a social Bronco fan look like in your world here in Denver?
I think if it's on, they'll watch it, but
Okay.
it's just kind of like, they're not going to be like being able to tell you who threw what ball or anything like
Who made that
that.
amazing catch? Or
Yeah,
who got
they're
that
like-
tackle? The sack.
They kind of know the rules, and so they
They
will
football, their
pretend.
team's not out here, so they're just not. They
Right.
have to go on.
Yeah.
Okay.
They buy the gear because it's there,
Yeah.
and like then they want to show their support.
They live in Denver, so it's the
Yeah.
thing to have
All right.
Broncos gear.
All right, that's good. That's good. What time is it, by the way?
It is
1:30.
32, 35. Okay.
With the blockchain.
Okay, let's go. I want to get through this, and then we're gonna start watching the Steve Bartman story from the 30 for 30 on Bartman. Have you ever seen that? Okay.
That's a great.
Yeah, it is a good one.
Guy
It's a
with
good
their
one.
favorite voice saloon.
Okay, so the focused sports fan. Individuals with moderate investment in a particular team, sport, or community who spend considerable time following outcomes. This, I guess, to me, when I think about this is the person who may not watch the game, but definitely wants to check to see what the final score is. Dallas native who is vested in seeing the Cowboys and Rangers perform well throughout their respective seasons. So you care, you're kind of, you're following them, you're interested, but it's not going to consume your entire day. You're not going to tailgate, but you're also not just there for social reasons, right? You kind of care about that team. Maybe you get the push notification on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Which is what we have. Then the last one would be your vested sports fan. So this is a sports fan with significant emotional attachment to the success or failure of the teams or sports they support. Snowboarding enthusiast who attends all national events and makes reservations to attend the Olympics every 4 years to support the sport. I think that's key, right? It doesn't have to be for a team. It can be for a sport. I think that's very important. Or a school, or you throw a school in there. These fans can all fall within that. So think about that when you go and you do your interviews. I know you were worried about finding somebody. Maybe find somebody who's a fan of a sport as opposed to, or a school as opposed to a team. Maybe that could be easier, right? Mountain biking can be
Probably
that
go to
thing.
golf tournament.
Golf tournament. Like, why would you go to a golf
18
tournament?
holes
To watch.
Seriously.
Who does that?
Walks. I had to
I
do it
love
because I
golf.
used to play golf.
Never do that.
U.S.
But-
Open though, this week. That's the best.
But would you go and watch?
And
Like,
stand there.
I would maybe just sit at
And
the
walk
18
18
holes.
I
That's
would-
it.
I went to tournaments, in the 70s
Right,
when
okay.
when it
Yeah,
wasn't so
that's-
much money.
Yeah.
You had Nicholas Palmer, Lee Trevino, Chichi Rodriguez.
Yeah.
It was entertaining.
Yeah.
Now there's
All
so
those
much money,
personalities,
and it's just the crowds are just
everybody's swing looks the same too.
except for mine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, same here for sure. So the vested sports fan. How many of you are vested sports fan? In what team? Dodgers.
Dodgers, Lakers, USC football.
Go OJ.
But because of USC football, I also watch the Seahawks every now and then because I'm a fan of Pete Carroll.
Okay.
Bears, Chicago Bears, Oakland Raiders.
I think you're just like sports.
I mean, I just like sports, but I follow all of those.
You're just
teams.
looking for reasons not to be social. You like go watch.
Kind of.
Who's yours?
New York Rangers.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow. Far out. Mike Richter.
Yeah, I'm a nut job.
Okay. The New York Rangers. Interesting. Okay.
I
No.
mean, I would say focus because I usually had to work on Sundays.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how much of this or your I wouldn't say apathy, but you have to be turned off by sports fans, I would assume.
Not necessarily. I mean, it depends on what state I was living in.
Okay.
So that definitely played. Like when I lived in California and San Diego, I
Yeah.
could not stand any of those teams at all.
Okay.
And I was also coming from New York, and I'm a Jets fan, huge Jets fan. But like I said, I always worked Sundays, so
Okay.
couldn't watch
Okay.
the games.
I hate the Chargers.
Yeah, definitely did not get a lot of. There wasn't a lot of love for the Chargers in San Diego. Like they never could
Phillip
fill up a
Rivers is a-
stadium or anything like that.
He kind of is.
He kinda is, though. He is.
He kinda is. Okay. That would be an interesting study. Would be to do some sort of, it would have to be like a survey. Maybe we should do this. How many of you are graduating? We should make this a project.
In the fall.
You are. We should make this that would be fun to go and do qualitative and quantitative research, perhaps with bartenders, servers in town during football season.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could
Yeah.
tell you that almost
Do they hate the sport?
all
Do they-
bartenders hate Raiders fans.
Really?
That's like one of Raiders fans and Patriots
Cowboys
fans.
too.
The Cowboys fans are not bad. They tip well. They treat the people right. Like it's all the places where they're unruly, they have loud mouths, they cause lots of drama. Those are the fans.
So like the Patriots.
And like the game, Patriots fans and Pittsburgh, Raiders for
Philly.
sure. Raiders.
I saw an ESPN special
And then
on-
Lakers. Nobody likes Lakers.
on fandom,
What was it?
top football fandom.
Okay.
It was like an ESPN special,
Yeah.
and it was Oakland,
Oakland.
Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
Dallas.
I mean, Pittsburgh
Green
is the defining
Bay.
characteristic of that, like that part of the country.
It's such a cool
right?
city, though. Like to see the fandom.
Yeah.
It's like everything is black and yellow. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing.
That's how the state of Iowa is.
Broncos.
What's your Broncos?
Broncos.
Broncos. So John Elway can do no wrong.
Oh,
That's
Mine.
the
That's all
thing.
that.
I've been thinking
You
a
think
lot
lot
about
of
that
so
now.
nice thing about
Such a
Elway.
kid.
I didn't think about it so much prior. I didn't because I was in John Elway. He got us to 2 Super Bowls. He got us to multiple visits. He's done great, even though I know his past history. And who doesn't? But now I've really started to think about it. And now I've heard his voice like on the TV. They talk Broncos and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I hear his voice. And I'm like, we really should not be idolizing this guy.
No.
Like, this is not okay. But, I mean, the Broncos organization itself, I mean, ever since Tiny, I've always been taught, cheer on the Broncos. So I just thought Elway was a part of that, but now I'm really starting to second guess that. That doesn't take away from my investment and my investing in the team.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I love the Broncos. And it was so sad when they got beat, their asses kicked.
There's
Super Bowl
probably
48.
no core. That was bad. That was bad. Snap over the head.
To start.
That was,
I was extremely excited.
so
I was
good.
like, oh, this is going to be wonderful.
That was horrible. But when they won the Super Bowl,
I don't like taking advantage.
Look.
Never have.
My fiance wasn't drinking, so I told her I was a drunken mess when they won the Super Bowl. I was like, let's go Cruise Federal! And I'm all jumping out the window and going up and down. It was so much fun.
Oh my God. That's good. I get it. I totally understand. You said, it's like, what team has caused the most arguments between you and your wife?
Well, this is interesting. She loves Wisconsin because she graduated from there.
Okay.
We grew up in Milwaukee and then moved to Columbus. Now, I despised Ohio State growing up. I mean, Woody Hayes, I didn't care who they played, I wanted them to lose. But all of a sudden, we moved
It
to
ended.
Columbus,
Mhm.
and I became a very strong Ohio State fan. Not that I abandoned Wisconsin, but my wife hates Ohio State and loves Wisconsin.
Okay.
And my answer when someone says, well, who do you root for? I said, because I like both teams, who was ever going somewhere who I want to win.
Okay.
So one time, Wisconsin and Ohio State were undefeated in football.
Yeah.
And, that was a tough thing because they were both going to go somewhere. But it just shows how you can turn from hating a team so much. You move to the city, you
Yeah.
identify with the
You identify with the people, right? There's got to be something about the emotional energy of the connection and all that. Yeah. It's a good point. It's a really good point. You got to go to? You a fan of anything? Rock band? No. Dungeons and Dragons? No. Broadcasting? No. Like meteorologist? Greg Lutra? You like a fan of Greg, the poster of him? No? Okay. All right. Fair enough. Joke didn't work then. Team Canada.
Canada.
Just in general.
Cardinals.
Justin Trudeau.
Trudeau.
Yeah.
He's a true
True dad.
guy. True dad.
Are you still a fan of the Rams?
No, not whatsoever. I
You were,
mean,
though.
it's the owner. It was the ownership that really turned off the idea of the Rams. I understand Kroenke's an asshole, but I mean, it was being raised out here, born and raised out here. I mean, every time they were like, "Oh, you're from St. Louis," it's like, "No, I was born and raised out here." And they're like, "Why St. Louis?" And it's just like my dad raised me everything. Then saw the Cardinals win in 2006, so I love St. Louis sports.
The Blues will make it someday.
It's a cool city.
I don't think
hate
I
them.
am losing hope more and more and more.
Okay.
We're becoming Cubs in the NHL.
It's rough. You? No. What are you a fan of? Anything. Like what? What are you a fan of? It doesn't have to be sports. Anything in general. A movie.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, kind of fading, but I used to be a really hardcore fan of Taylor Swift.
There we go. Okay. T-Swift can do no wrong. All right, let's take a break. Thanks everybody for watching. Let's go watch the Steve Barber movie. What's it called? I can't remember what the hell it's called.
It's
30 did you just say?
What is it?
Did you just say it was called 30 for 30?
It's a 30 for 30, but I
Oh,
don't remember.
30 special.
So we go back to the classroom?
No, we'll stay in here. We'll
Oh,
watch it in there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.